2020 is almost upon us. Let's look back at the games that defined a decade.
It's been an incredible decade for gaming. Some things have been surprising. Esports, battle royale games, the rise of indies, while others feel reassuringly familiar. And in this list, we'll be looking at 10 titles that encompass the evolution of video games over the last 10 years. A collection of experiences that defined the decade and revolutionised our favourite pastime. From Minecraft changing not just how we play games, but how we watch them too, to Dark Souls teaching us the true meaning of practice makes perfect. Here, in no particular order, are the 10 games that defined the decade.
History shows us the release of the 5th Elder Scrolls title in 2011 wasn't so much a game launch as it was a cultural event. It's hard to imagine the 2010s without the memes, this icy Nordic adventure instilled in our collective psyche. They've been around so long, in fact, that we've almost grown tired of arrows to knees and Thomas the Tank Dragon. But unlike the other games we'll go on to talk about, Skyrim is about refinement and not revolution. You could even argue the series reached its peak in terms of player freedom with Morrowind, but Skyrim retains a magical X-factor that still makes it irresistibly playable. The lack of finesse and fuss makes you feel directly connected to the game's world. There are no elegant, weight-mapped animations here, just a cause and effect system that still feels reactive and exploratory. And there's something about the setting, topography and music that's stirring in a way that few open-world games since have matched. Every log bridge, bandit cave and mountain feels handcrafted, and Skyrim can feel like a uniquely personal journey because of this. And that's maybe why it's so powerful, even now. Everyone who loves fantasy RPGs has walked this path, but all of us walked it alone.
Okay, Matt and I argued endlessly about this one, but he threatened to Fulton my Assassin's Creed jacket if we included Odyssey over Hideo Kojima's magnum opus. But it's deserving of its place. It's a systematically perfect stealth sandbox with missions that are so detailed and emergent that you could just play the same one over and over. But it's also a game that feels like the end of an era and the start of something new. It marked the conclusion of Hideo Kojima's time at Konami, leading some to speculate that the game was unfinished, and parts of the story could be interpreted as a reflection on his time with the publisher. But the commentary doesn't end there. The game reflects on the things that define the 2010s, whether it's the ceaseless chatter of social media or how we find the meaning in language that suits our argument. Which is why D-Dog is called D-Dog when he's clearly a wolf. Love him or loathe him, few other developers hold a mirror up to society in the same way as COG, and it's one reason of many why MGS5 is on this list. Another is box sledging. Whee!
Extraction failed.
Minecraft is such an important part of the 2010s that it's literally impossible to visualize what life might have been like without it. What you're doing right now, i.e. watching a video about games, would have looked quite different without Mojang's majestic voxel classic. The foundations of the most successful careers on YouTube were laid here, in this world of vertiginous stone towers and humble mud huts. But more than this, Minecraft is a crisp example of a surging digital trend that reached far beyond gaming's usual boundaries. Suddenly, your 8-year-old cousin was racking up more hours of gaming per week than you ever could. Shop shelves were crammed with creeper dolls and Minecraft sticker books, and publishers discovered a huge but dormant audience more than willing to spend their parents' money on games. And on top of all this, Minecraft showed that indie games with simple graphics could draw the attention and investment of the biggest companies in the world. Put simply, Minecraft helped define what games we watched, played and developed for an entire decade. And while our next entry might have stolen the paper crown when it comes to games that all the kids play, it owes much of its success to the title, formerly known as Cave Game.
Let's face it, we spend so much time playing video games that for us, the idea of them not being mainstream is by this point ludicrous. And yet, as Fortnite has proved, there's mainstream and then there's Lady Gaga asking what something is on Twitter, even if she doesn't spell it right. If ever there was anything that could measure the success of your Battle Royale game, that might be it. Of course, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds had already had stratospheric success with the concept earlier in 2017, and continues to do so. But Epic Games' free add-on to its zombie builder was what truly made a dent in the public consciousness. Well, not so much as a dent as a massive black hole where an entire generation was allegedly losing every moment of its free time. Fortnite Battle Royale is a defining game of the decade for a number of reasons. Sure, it got people talking, but what Epic Games has done with its constantly evolving nature means it never gets stale, never letting anyone get bored or, heaven forbid, stop playing. Throw in the cinematic live destruction of the original map and days of genuine downtime before Chapter 2 arrived, and Fortnite put video games on the world stage and kept them there.
You could make the case that it's Demon's Souls that established the classic Hidetaka Miyazaki action RPG structure, but it just misses out on account of its 2009 release. But even if it didn't, 2011's Dark Souls would make this list on account of it perfecting and popularising the formula. You can see the superficial influence of Dark Souls everywhere. Other games have happily lifted the bonfire theme or the way it deals with death. It's a title now synonymous, perhaps unfairly, with crushing difficulty spikes. But Dark Souls, by its very nature, is a game that increases in prestige when analysed as a self-contained adventure. Everything you need to love and appreciate it is right there in the vanilla code, from the bleak, sweeping story to jolly cooperation. And the feeling you get when you look back across Lordaeron and see how far you've come is at the heart of everything we love about games. Progress, failure, growth, resolve, reward, recurrence, all these things coalesce in Dark Souls and somehow make it easier to understand what we do or don't like about other games. And that might sound like hyperbole for a game about killing rats and lighting bonfires, but Dark Souls really is that good.
Yes, indeed.
Now, we all know that success isn't just about money, but when it comes to Grand Theft Auto 5, it's hard not to talk about the fact that this is the single most successful entertainment product of all time. Having sold more than 90 million copies and generated over $6 billion in revenue since launch, there isn't a single TV show, movie, or video game that can hold a candle to the criminally profitable ways of Michael, Trevor, or Franklin. Despite surely everyone already owning it at least twice and it releasing all the way back in 2013, GTA 5 is still consistently a top seller in video game charts. But it's still easy to see why. The sprawling open world potential of Los Santos is tantalising enough, but throw in the endless and lucrative delights of GTA Online and suddenly Rockstar's Behemoth has infinite potential. And when it comes to looking at a whole decade of open world offerings, GTA 5 might have been earlier than most, but that doesn't make this alternate Los Angeles any less appealing. There's a cinematic joy to be found here as you cruise the streets with that soundtrack in your ears that makes it a frankly unrivaled masterpiece.
Adios, amigos.
This is a great big end-of-century list, so I'm allowed to be a little bit OTT. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt isn't just good, it's so good that it sometimes feels like it shouldn't really exist. It's so good that you can look at the map, filled as it is with colour and personality and variety, and think something's gone wrong. We weren't supposed to get this game for at least another 5 years. And all this is why it feels like one of the defining works of the decade, even if it didn't introduce us to a new genre or change the focus of the industry. Instead, The Witcher 3 gives us the definitive example of a perfectly crafted game world. A world that feels like it must have existed before CD Projekt Red gifted it with life. And I don't just mean in Andrei Sapkowski's novels either, I mean in really real life. There are enough soaring moments here for a standalone video, but in brief, let's mention the stern portrayal of a war-ravaged country, the humane, surprising quests, and a peerless lead character in Geralt of Rivia. I did warn you at the start that I was going to be a little bit OTT, but even this doesn't feel like quite enough. Just, play it.
Been through hell and high water, you and me. Fact is, you know me better than anyone else does.
If even watching Spelunky footage makes you twitch with a sudden desire to swing your way through subterranean networks packed with snakes, join the Addicted Club. Spelunky isn't just on our list of the games of the decade for its utter disregard for your free time or RSI though. It's here because, as well as making us never want to play another game again with its rinse and repeat roguelike style, it's also the perfect representation of the lone developer and tiny team success stories we would see again and again throughout the decade. Derek Yu originally made Spelunky available in 2008, but it didn't arrive in its current form until 2013. Not so quietly becoming the perfect indie darling. And it's something we saw throughout the 2010s, the brilliant success of tiny teams making passion projects to take over the world. Stardew Valley, Undertale, Needhog, Papers, Please, Towerfall, all brilliant, inventive indie experiences that quietly defined what it means to not be AAA but still have everyone playing your game and sharing the love. And the snakes, obviously.
Next up, we've got Dishonored, and by extension the 2016 sequel. This one might seem like a slightly reserved choice when placed next to titans such as Skyrim and Minecraft, and that's almost the point. The things Dishonored excels at are the things you have to look deeply to find, which is, when you think about it, really rather meta. It's a shining example of a modern emergent PC game with rules and mechanics that give the player an unthinkable level of freedom. And more than just teaching you those rules, Dishonored reassures you there's no correct way to play. Dunwall is a tumble of crooked windows and hidden doors, the sort of place that feels real and reactive despite every single shortcut and obstacle being meticulously placed for maximum player freedom. And more than this, Arcane's bold, open-ended design revitalised emergent sims and brought them to new audiences. It might not be as obvious as Battle Royale modes or bonfire save points, but Arcane's influence has subtly changed the way that many devs work, and people who play games are much better off for it.
Have you seen my little birdies? Ah, the dear things must be starving without their granny. Here, birdies.
And finally, last but definitely not least, is the small matter of the defining multiplayer shooter of the decade, Overwatch. Blizzard Entertainment's esports behemoth had stiff competition from Destiny 2, but Diva & Co. snared the victory for sheer scale and scope, not to mention consistency since its release in 2016. No one expected Overwatch to succeed in the way it did, but where Battleborn, released around the same time, has just closed its servers, Overwatch is, well, Overwatch, a global phenomena of passionate players and professional teams. Finding just the right balance of characters is a perfect conundrum, but was also what so many people found so attractive about picking the game up for the first time. These were genuinely different characters, not just with their own stories, but truly individual skills and abilities. You'll always find the hero that you want to be here. And Overwatch hasn't stopped growing or evolving. Who knew we'd be arguing about how cute a hamster in a ball character could be in a competitive shooter in 2018? You could say that Overwatch came in like, well, a wrecking ball.
So there is our decade-defining list, but it's important to note that for every game listed here, we had to cut dozens more. We didn't have time to talk about how Assassin's Creed Odyssey broke the Ubisoft mold to magnificent effect, or how Mass Effect 2 made us care more about our digitised crew than we do our own families. And we missed how Gone Home made walking, thinking and feeling a legitimate, much-copied game experience, and how Dota 2 became a generational touchstone when it comes to the MOBA. But please go ahead and let us know in the comments which games we should have made room for. I'll just be over here trying to crowbar in the Total War series. And as ever, be sure to like this video if it brought back any happy memories, and hit the subscribe button and ring the bell of awakening, yes, like in Dark Souls, to never miss another video. And we'll see you again in 2029.